Good news. I kind of figured out how to play a synth. I'm really feeling this.
I like it.
That's how it's going to wrap.
That felt like a proper ending.
Well, yeah. So the thing I learned about making jams, which is what I call songs that haven't actually been written yet, is that if you can get a beginning and an ending that comes together well, then it's going to sound like a song. And if you can't cleanly end or begin, people will assume that you were just making it up the whole time. And they won't feel great about that. They want you to end it tight.
Yeah, that's why the drummer has to have like that closing fill. You know, you can stop any song with a drummer that knows how to stop a song.
Yeah, because everyone else can just quit playing and the drummer ends the song.
Well, I have learned like when I hear the wheels start to turn, like I know that there's the ending is here. Like it's time to wrap this up.
You know who doesn't need to end a song?
Fish.
The bass player.
Can I just say I no, I'm not going to say it. I don't want to bring negativity into this episode. I'm not a fan.
The great thing about bass playing is that you can get a passable bass play. You can get a passable rhythm section out of anybody that can keep time, as long as they have 10 fingers and can reach with one finger onto the bass. You can get a 4 on the floor and a bass groove that everybody else who's got more skills than that can like jam over in 15 minutes from almost anybody.
Yeah, but the sonic part of a band, of a record, I start with the lyrics, obviously, and melody and sort of the story. But
I don't know why you say that as obviously, but yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but the sonic aspect, rhythm section has a huge part of that for me. Like guitar to me is
an album of a person who just learned a 4 on the floor playing with a person who just learned a 2-note bass line. But if you're talking about, it was a choice between playing over a backing track versus playing over people who just learned it. A lot of times I'd prefer to just play with the people that are brand new to this.
Yeah, because they will stay out of the way.
Well, no, because the thing that I like about the music is, even if you're only playing one note over and over and over again on the bass because you just learned it this minute, your ability to like focus on what you're doing while understanding that other people are also doing something at the same time, and the flow between what you're doing and what the other people are doing, and your ability to pick up cues, take instructions, know when it's your time to do something different and when it's your time to not do something different. All of that stuff exists as the smallest bit of music that you would play together. The musicality of it isn't the part that matters. The ability to pick up the cues and have that kind of communication back and forth can be instilled like really, really, really fast. It's like, imagine playing to a bunch of kids and you're going to do like a call and response. Like they can pick up on that, and they're not the audience doing the response. They're just part of the song with you. And so that's the piece I like, is that you can communicate the vibe of playing live music or jamming with people who really don't have any idea how to do it. I would not package that and sell that as an album. I wouldn't even give it away as an album.
So there are decades of country songs that are not much more than that. They're like beautiful country songs.
There's a lot of music that's not got a whole lot of music to it.
For sure.
But I'm not a lyrics guy though. So then that throws that whole thing in for a loop, because since I don't care that much about lyrics, I don't listen to them that much, they don't resonate with me. It makes it very difficult to have super minimalist music if I also am not, if my lyrics are doopa doopa doop deepa deepa deep blah 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 hey hey hey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's honestly what I just sang is more complicated than most of the lyrics I would put in a song.
Yeah. Yes. To each his own. That's the beauty of art, is it's best appreciated subjectively. So
can I buck our schedule?
Yeah. I just wanted to say that I hate jam bands. I can't let it go. Like Fish, Grateful Dead. Oh, take them. You can have them.
Okay, tell me what part you don't like about them.
All of it. All of it. All of it. 20-minute songs, the culture, just not my scene.
I think one of the things I like the most about I'm not even gonna say jam bands because that's pretty broad. The thing I like the most about the Grateful Dead and Fish, more the Grateful Dead than Fish, is the breadth of different genres of music that they play as a band. So
That's fair.
I it didn't occur. And so if I didn't play music, I probably wouldn't care at all about either of those bands. But Grateful Dead plays a huge variety of different songs, all as the same band, and that part is cool. Like if the Grateful, I mean, this is if you were to go back in time, and Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead played a quick concert, so 6 to 8 hours of your favorite country music, you'd be like, wow, I was not expecting that to be anything but terrible. And the songs were a little too long, but somehow it mostly worked, and I don't want to kill myself.
Yeah,
That's what you'd come away from
it
that concert
mostly
saying.
worked because everybody was out of their mind on some substance or another.
The band or the audience?
Everybody, the birds flying overhead, like there was just the street was high. I mean, everybody's out of it.
All right. So
Not that that's any different from most music. It's just
I
that
think I
not
think
my
the
thing.
reason you hate it is because it shows a real lack of discipline.
I interrupted you teling me
How do
how
you
you
like
were
that
gonna
segue though?
we're bucking our schedule though. Like it
We're gonna
sounds like
buck
we're
the
not.
schedule because I want to talk about I want to talk about distractions and disruptions. I can't. So after going through Terry's day, a day in the life of Terry, I cannot get out of my head this question: what happens when I say discipline, but what happens when your schedule doesn't work? And I feel like your answer is going to be, well, I'm not, it's not a schedule, Russ. It's not a routine. It's discipline. And you're going to be able to explain to me how they're different.
So here's how it happens, and I'll give you an example because this is how it's gone for me for 15 years. I go to Europe in 2 weeks. I fly obviously overnight. I will get there sometime in the morning in Amsterdam. I'm taking a train to Berlin. I will get to Berlin, and at some point that day, I will go run. Probably as soon as I get there, but definitely at some point that day, I will go run. I will have meditated once, probably on the train. I'll do it again that day. Um, just um, the day is just a series of hours. It's increments of time. It doesn't affect what I do. Where I am doesn't affect what I do. The weather doesn't affect what I do. Sometimes I have to do them in different chronological order, but it still doesn't disrupt my day.
That just means that's not disruptive. What is the most disruptive thing that you would experience?
Probably illness, but I haven't had that in a long time either. Like I had COVID 3 times,
Lucky you.
and yeah, and just yeah, as I think we discussed this, or I discussed it with somebody else. I can't remember who, but I had it 3 times. Felt a little bit like a cold, and did what I normally do. Like in terms of obviously we weren't going anywhere, but I got up and ran and did everything that I normally do.
How, what percent of your normal self were you while running in the worst of COVID? So your running regimen is you're going to run 2 or 3 miles pretty quick, 7 minute pace ish. So as a percent of peak Terry, how did you feel while running in the worst of COVID?
There were multiple days where I ran 6:15 miles.
No, like, why? Who are you bragging to?
I'm just saying, like it.
So you had COVID and you felt never better.
I could tell I had something wrong. Like I didn't feel fantastic. I didn't feel like the best ever. But
Not so that's your ranking was not fantastic.
yeah, most days I feel fantastic. Honest to God.
No, I believe you, especially given the regimen that you stick to. We didn't even
Yeah.
talk about diet other than that you have a good one.
Um, I have one that works for me.
What about financial surprises?
In terms of disrupting my day,
Maybe not your day.
I'm not a I'm an experience guy. So I'm not a thing person. I don't, I don't need gadgets and stuff.
What's the most catastrophic bill you could imagine getting? So tree falls through your roof and it's uninsured. Car is totaled and it turns out that your insurance actually doesn't cover it because it was flood damage, or like medical bill for a weird nose surgery and nose wasn't covered in the insurance you had, or just something that's not an insurable situation. Like what's the dollar price of most catastrophic thing you could see happening to you?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to put an amount on that. I mean, I'm not going to be happy about any amount of bill that's a surprise or unplanned for expense.
Okay, let me phrase it a different way that might
What's
make
the
it
dollar
easier.
amount that's going to take me down?
mm, no, that's less interesting. No, that's not as fun. What is so how much you can put this in terms of months of income, or you could put it in raw dollar amounts, or pick another way to show this. But how big would your emergency fund need to be before you would feel like you have no meaningful financial worry about a big surprise expense?
I'd need to have no I'd need to have no income for if I didn't have income for the next 10, 12 months, I'd get nervous.
Yeah,
But
that's about where I am.
even then I'd be okay. I'd figure it out. I have a retirement account. I have things that could be used in an emergency situation.
Can I ask you a sensitive question?
Sure.
Is there a high likelihood that you accidentally become addicted to, I don't know, morphine or something like that?
No. Zero likelihood.
Like back injury, they got you on the drip.
So, and it's interesting that you say that. I learned very early on that I don't like pain medicine. Like I hate it. I won't take it. I had wisdom teeth removed. This was in high school, and they gave me pain medicine. I forget what it was, but very
Probably
strong,
codeine or something like that.
something strong. It made me feel horrible. It made me very foggy. It knocked me out, and that was before there was no discipline prism to see that. It was just I hated the way I felt. And so pain pills are not a thing. I'd have to be. Now, that said, I've never taken fentanyl. I've never taken, morphine or some of the really strong narcotics. Who knows? If I have some sort of debilitating injury and am given that, who knows what that feels like?
Well, there's always the who knowses. This is
Yeah.
the nature of disruption, and the nature of distraction are the whole point of these things is they're the things that you're not planning for.
The disruption, and I think I see what you're getting at, and I don't want to take this into a dark place, but the disruption that would get me is something happening to one of my two children. That's the um you know it would be interesting to see how that shakes out.
I
I
have an
don't
even I have an even darker place. You ready for me to take it there?
oh, yeah, go ahead.
You fall in love with the wrong woman.
Oh, I've done that. That's
Yeah, that's what
happened.
I'm saying. I feel like
Yeah.
that's going to be a wild card for you.
I'm good there. I've
You've
sharpened those skills. I've made all those mistakes. I've my I'll just leave it at that. But you know what?
without teasing you about this, I am I'm trying to probe the edges of whether what we have here is an overly rigid, overly prepared Terry, and
You
that there's like something that's going to be like bam, and then we're going to have a completely different Terry. And you got a neck tattoo. You decided that the lean muscle is not for you. You're just gonna get super jacked.
fat, yeah.
You're gonna start. No, you're not gonna get fat.
Oh,
You're gonna get
like
super
biker
jacked.
guy.
You were gonna have a double jet ski trailer, two in the front, two in the back. You're gonna like leave where you're living now and go live on the lake in Tallahassee so that you can just jet ski all day long.
Yeah.
And you have like 2 weeks worth of savings in the bank. You've decided that you're going to be an EDM producer and that rock is dead. You're drinking, but like not a ton. But then you're weirdly binge drinking every once in a while, and you just disappear off the radar, and nobody knows where you went. Like that's the Terry falls in love scenario. That I'm wondering if there's like a big pivot that could happen with the left field thing.
So it's interesting that you go there, because that is you're looking for the chink, I guess, the chink in the armor, and that is it. But it's different than you have described.
I'm looking for your Achilles heel.
My Kirk Cousins heel.
Well, I don't get that. I don't get that reference.
He tore his Achilles a couple days ago. The quarterback for the Vikings.
Yeah. I know who he is, but I didn't know he tore his Achilles because I don't follow football because I'm a bad American.
I'm aware of it tangentially. Like it's in the ether, but I don't pay attention.
Do you know what they called him in DC?
Cole's Cash?
No, they call him KC1 because he came right after RG3.
Oh. KC1. I like him. I like him. He's weird. He was on a Netflix special called Quarterback that Peyton Manning did. It was
great name.
Yeah. Him, Patrick Mahomes, and Marcus Mariota, and they sort of followed them around, and all of last year. And this is relatively new, past few months. But I always thought he was like this super goony guy, and he is. But he's very meticulous with his craft, and I like people like that.
Would you say that he's pretty disciplined?
Incredibly. And I would say that
I have a follow-up question, but go on.
I was just going to say that his wife's beautiful. Yeah, so
like gonna fall in love with you and wreck your life. Beautiful.
No, I don't make enough money. She's not going to follow.
Neck tat, Tallahassee jet ski Terry.
I like that version though. I don't think that person gives a crap about anything. I think
basically all I just did was describe Kenny Powers, former baseball star.
And I would be Kenny Powers because I love that show so much.
He's another guy that has great stories about how he made low budget films. So, what's the dude's name? Danny McBride.
Danny McBride. Yeah,
so he's from North Carolina. He went to NC Arts for film school, and he made a movie called Foot Fist Way about a strip mall karate instructor. But essentially, the main character, the protagonist, was proto Kenny Powers, right? So over a series of projects, Danny McBride basically just refined what would eventually be the Kenny Powers archetype. And so he made a couple different projects about that. And, he didn't get widespread popularity despite practicing at making movies. Like he was a movie maker and a director for a lot of years, and then eventually kind of like got huge. And when he talks about, what's it like being in film school, being in North Carolina, not Los Angeles or New York, making movies in North Carolina because like that's where you're from, that's where you like to be. And also the contrast between I think his characters are mostly written to be pretty dumb.
For sure.
I mean, part of me wants to say that maybe they're not exactly dumb. They're
smart. There's no self-awareness. Zero self-awareness.
But then I come back and I'm like, no, they might actually just be really, really dumb. And Danny McBride, when you hear him talk, he has the same voice as Kenny Powers with slightly less intensity. But basically, Kenny Powers' voice is just Danny McBride turned up to 10, and regular Danny McBride is like turned up to 7. So hearing Kenny Powers articulate his film journey through NC Arts and like the Carolina mountain film scene and what it's like being out there making indie movies for 20 years before you get, found and make it big. It was, it was like a compelling story to hear about this guy's like movie making thing. And a lot of people, I think a lot of movie watchers aren't thinking so much about, what is the life of a person who wants to make movies. It's more like, oh, well, director X is huge now, and what does their life look like?
Yeah.
Not what was the path. And I think that the thing that has stood out for me was there's no guarantee you're going to make it trying to make movies, but the similarities between I'm just out here trying to make movies and it's hard versus I'm just out here trying to have a job and it's hard versus I'm just out here trying to have a small business and it's hard. It's a surprising number of parallels when you kind of hear about what was guy who decided to make movies early life looked like. So anyway, that's your
My
movie
favorite
making tangent there.
my favorite version of that is Jared Hess, who did Napoleon Dynamite
Yeah.
and Nacho Libre. Very low budget films. They're the same movie basically, and they are funny. They're hilarious, but they're also
Oh yeah.
real dark. And I love them both dearly. I've seen them both a ton of times, but he's one of my favorite versions of that. He did another film. I think he's only done 3, or last I looked into it, he'd only done 3, and his first one was kind of bad. I didn't really get into it. I can't remember the name of it, but the Escalado from Nacho Libre was one of the main characters in his first film.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you could tell that the evolution, like that was exactly what you just described with Danny McBride. That first film would probably be the Karate Strip Mall story.
Yeah. Foot Fist Way.
Yeah, not great. But you could see what was coming for sure. And then he, did Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre.
Did you feel like the character of Uncle Rico, former football star, was written directly at you?
No, because I don't live in the past.
Good.
Yeah, I never talk about. I was a quarterback. Like I was a quarterback and a pitcher, and I never talk about that. I'm talking about it now, but like
I did press you on it.
You did. Yeah.
I think the way I knew you were a former competitive baseball player was just when I looked at you and saw what shape you were. Not what shape you are in, what shape you are. I was like, oh yeah, that guy's a pitcher.
Yeah. And here's a secret for you. Most athletes, non-basketball, most athletes are, I'm going to narrow it to baseball. Like the kids who get recruited out of high school are all 6 foot or 6'1", about 185 pounds. Like that is if you were to cookie cut. Now, obviously the people who make it to pro baseball are bigger and stronger and faster because we distill out those, traits as we work up through the ranks. But most of your really advanced high school baseball players are 6 foot, 6'1", 185 across the board.
I was at my dad's place this weekend, and because we've been talking about discipline, I asked him what his maximum weight was and what his typical weight was. And he's like, I've been 185 pounds since forever. And he's 6 foot. I asked him if he's shrunk yet, if he's down to 5'11". And he's like, I like to still consider myself 6 foot.
Yeah.
So he's got the body type, but he, instead of being an athlete, he's not super athletic or interested in sports. And so instead he was an Air Force pilot, which was another great choice for that.
Yeah. Same person.
But well, hold the phone. He flew cargo planes.
Same person.
No. The joke he told me that he'd get like the fighter pilots would show off what their plane could do, and then the response from the cargo pilots was they would just stand up and go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was funny to me.
Yeah.
He flew cargo tankers in the first round of a new cargo tanker contract. So it was a little bit special because air refueling is kind of a wild, weird corner of the Air Force, and he flew helicopters before that. So he had search and rescue helicopters. Then he did VIP, like just shuffling important people around the DC metro area for a while. That's where I was born. And then he switched to the cargo tanker airplane, fixed wing airplanes, as he called it. But anyway, I just think it's funny that he has the build of a, a recruitable athlete. And I was like, man, Dad, I'd love to get that. Love to get that 15 pounds off. Any recommendations? And he's like, nope.
Does he do? I mean, is it just he's one of the fortunate ones where?
Well, he doesn't eat very much. Like, he eats the appropriate amount of food to maintain his body type. He exercises off and on, and he has a good metabolism. But he also just generally eats, a 2,000 calorie diet and has religiously, and so his weight hasn't fluctuated that much.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call it a matter of discipline in that case.
The ingestion of food is the hardest thing for so many people. Even if you can crack the code of exercise, you can't outrun, by and large, you can't outrun a bad diet.
So how big of a, like, let's call it cheat day or oops day or I ate a chocolate cake day. I mean, how big of a distraction or a falling off the rails? How far can you go and have it still be inside the realm of discipline? Answer for yourself, and then answer for like a generic person.
So me now, I don't know. I don't even really think about it. Like I don't crave like big pasta dishes or things.
I like the big pasta is where you go. I'm like over here literally saying eat an entire chocolate cake, and you're like pasta, as if that's gonna do the same thing as a cake.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. A couple weeks back, my mom was very much a cooker and a baker. Everything
Can you spoil it for me? Did you eat a chocolate cake?
I ate whatever pumpkin thing she made. I ate a whole lot. Like a normal serving, probably times 3.
Nice. This is exactly this is what I needed. So tell me the rest of what happened then.
So I had also she makes this dish. I ask her to bring it every time they come, called corn pudding, which is not an extraordinary dish, but the way she does it is. So I had an excessive amount of that too. And those are 2 types of things that I don't ever eat. So I felt horrible that night and slept like crap and felt fine the next day. Did my normal stuff, and it was just another day.
What time did you start consuming the bad food?
6.
What time are you done consuming the end of the bad food?
7, 6:45.
So you had like less than a 12-hour turnaround time to process the mistake.
You mean by the time I got up the next morning?
Yeah. So you were in 3 hours or so of discomfort while awake, and then another 5 to 8 hours of discomfort not being able to sleep, right?
Correct. And
how many times in the last 365 days, how many times have you had a similar incident that caused you not to be able to sleep at night or to sleep uncomfortably compared to normal?
I don't know.
Is it a lot? Is it a few?
A few.
A few.
Like if it were more than 5, I would be shocked.
Yeah, I'm a great sleeper. I think in the last 5 years, other than a child waking me up, the only thing that has disrupted full night's sleep and been like, oh man, I couldn't sleep last night, was work-induced stress stuff, which was pretty rare. And that happened like maybe 5 or 6 times in the last handful of years.
So here's a story about sleep. For me, has been a function of, I used to be, and by used to be, like up till about a year ago, I used to be, I'll sleep when I'm dead guy. Like I just, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's too much literature now about how horrible that mindset is for you. and how beneficial a proper night of sleep is. So I went on a journey to figure out why I don't sleep well, because I started trying to, and there were some things that contributed to it last fall. But I went on a journey, and it turns out, and a lot of people have this problem, that we don't eat as much of the whole animal as we used to. And so one of the key neurotransmitters that really helps promote sleep is glycine. And most people don't, even if you're eating meat, glycine is in short supply, because we're eating sort of the carved out cuts of meat. We don't have bone and
Yeah,
tendon.
we're having like if you have filet mignon 20
Correct.
days in a row, that means you've had one part of one animal and you haven't had
Correct.
any of the variety that you would get from the other bits.
Correct. And
Got to throw some chicken feet in there.
if okay, so yeah, if there's one dietary tip that I would say folks should figure out, do some investigation on, is how can you consume more parts of the animal if you are a meat eater, and you really have to be disciplined if you're not. But anyway, it turns out glycine supplementation for me, in addition to magnesium, but glycine supplementation for me, just I get the best sleep for a minimum of 7 hours a night to 8 hours a night. And so if I don't sleep now, it's because I've done something dumb, like drank too much wine too close to bed, or, the eating scenario that I just explained from a couple weeks back. Doesn't happen often, though. Anyone that you're close to, or that you're in conversation with, who has trouble sleeping, ask them to do some investigation on glycine supplementation. It's harmless. It does nothing to you. Your body produces it naturally. Just through diet is how you're supposed to get the appropriate level. And most people's diet does not provide that level. So supplementation helps.
Historically, have you read a lot of popular business books,
No.
especially the lightweight pamphlet-esque ones?
Nope.
Do you know who Dale Carnegie is?
The name sounds familiar, but probably because of Andrew Carnegie.
He wrote the Heath Ledger movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Mm.
No, I'm just kidding. He wrote the book How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay.
Which is precisely what it sounds like in the title. Also, he changed his name from whatever his spelling of his name to match Andrew Carnegie's name to sell more books.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in this book, which was published in the robber baron era, he is talking about basically the power of persuasion by asking people about themselves, and he didn't call it this, but mirroring, and just generally making it so that the other person thinks that you care about them. And the best way to make it seem like you care about the other person is to care about the other person.
For sure.
So very good coaching, very popular as a business book. There was an anti book published later called the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah. Robert Greene. I have that.
Yeah. And then best subsequent book was the 50th Law or whatever, which was the 50 Cent version of 48 Laws of Power, written by 50 Cent, the rapper.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so in How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I will henceforth refer to as in the anti 48 Laws of Power, one of the anecdotes that the author tells is about convincing a kid to stop bedwetting through the power of, persuasive reasoning with them. And that was the point at which I stopped reading the examples in the book, because I was like, that's not how urology works.
Exactly.
And you cannot there's nothing you can tell a kid to make them stop bedwetting if they are urologically underdeveloped for their age, and they will outgrow it as they get older. And if they don't outgrow it and it's an actual physiological condition, then they need a course of medical treatment, not you to explain to them how, they'll be a better person, or I'll give you candy in the morning. Like, none of that is going to work.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pseudoscience you about my next question about your sleep. Before you tried glycine supplementing. Did you ever try harder to sleep?
Yes, I did. I did all the hacks, all of the, make sure the room's completely dark, make
Completely dark.
sure because your brain needs to, your brain needs to drop 2.5 degrees for optimal sleep. And I made the room cold, did everything, and it didn't matter. I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's very early,
Yeah.
even for you.
Yes. And it would frustrate me to no end. It's like, I just need like 2 more hours, just 2 more hours. Like, why does this have to happen? So
You're
I don't know.
sleeping. You're sleeping 7 hours a night now, or more. Seven to 7.5.
Correct. Yeah. 10 to 5.
Are you an advocate for the more people generally need 8 hours of sleep than they think they do?
I am now. I didn't used to be. And I think that's one of those things that's really evolved in my lifetime. We talked about a few of these the other day. That's one of the things that's really evolved in my lifetime, is how important sleep is for everything everything physiological in our body, everything emotional, hormonal balance for men, for women. Everything is predicated on a proper night of sleep. In fact, you really, if you're trying to get fit and healthy, you shouldn't even start with running or anything unless you've got sleep under control.
I have a quick sleep story about. I have a very long sleep story that I'm going to spare you, but I'll tell you the quick sleep story. The best sleep self-observation lessons. I had an apartment with east-facing windows, and I would just like wake up when the sun came up, or a little bit before, but basically when there was light, I would stir and I would wake up at roughly the same pace as the sunshine. If you had told me that I should buy one of those sunrise lamps that gradually comes on, I'm like, that is absolute nonsense. There's no way that's needed. And then I get like this apartment, and it literally floor to ceiling windows in my bedroom. And I was like, this is the best I have ever felt, ever.
Yeah.
Waking up in the morning, I feel amazing every morning, no matter what. And I almost never want to stay in bed.
Yeah.
So that was sort of concurrent to having a dog who woke up early. And the way I knew that I was ready to have kids in my life was I would find myself being awake a couple times in the middle of the night, either because the dog was waking me up or because I was just awake. And then also still being, naturally awake at 6 or earlier in the morning, and not really feeling bothered by it. And I was like, I finally, at the age of, I don't know, 29, probably at that point, I was like, I think I've grown up to the point where I don't just need a solid, unbroken 8.5 hour night every single night where I sleep like the dead. If I'm going to be up in the middle of the night, I might as well be rocking a newborn back to sleep.
Yeah.
And it was one of the worst decisions that I've ever made in my life. I'm kidding. Not having kids. Having kids wasn't the worst decision. Thinking that was sufficient to prepare me for sleepless nights with a toddler, or newborn and toddler or newborn and infant was totally out to lunch.
Yeah. It's not just being awake. The stress level of caring for another little human it's its own thing.
Yeah, it's not the 15 minutes or an hour or even 2 hours that you're awake in the night. That part, sure, you've like aged into, and now you can do that. It's the other 23 hours a day or
Yeah.
22 hours a day where you also are still responsible for their well-being.
You brought up an interesting thing in that story, though. Sun gazing is a real thing. A real thing.
My version of sun gazing is you stare at the sun to like treat your eyes, and then it actually makes it worse.
You should get sunlight as early in the day as you can. That's why you felt great.
Well, I am very much a sunshine person.
Oh,
So
me
if
too.
any time of year, there was a long stretch in my journal where it had largely become so it was a discipline journal on the things that I did. Did I or did I not do the thing? And it was also when I bothered to, uh, write additional thoughts on the day and reflect on the day. It was often a mood tracker, not even really a journal, but just like how did I feel today? And that, I would have long stretches where my mood felt like it was largely neutral, periods of decline and then back to neutral. And I just felt like I was missing some peaks here and there. and I don't know that anything has, so I don't feel that way now, but I'm not sure that I necessarily did anything specific to change it. Um, Reducing alcohol consumption might have been a factor, but
Yeah.
when I think about like what's the peak, it's not like oh there was the time I completed the marathon. It's not oh there was it's not even like oh there's the time that I was filled with joy because my kids came into the world. No, it's like I walked out and there was a sunny day and I felt a crisp spring breeze and warm sunshine on my face, and I was like, I love life so much right now. And that's it. Like those little tiny wins, if you can call it a win. I was like, man, I don't think I'm ready to live someplace like where it's dark for half the year.
Yeah, man. We've just entered, like, it's really cold here right now. This is like the first time for the fall that it's gotten that way. This is the time of year through about March, probably April, but March, April-ish. It's head down time for me because there are a lot of gray days, and I love the sun. Love the sun. And that's not an uncommon thing, that what I've just described, but it's there's a fair amount of discipline in just ignoring gray, cold, cloudy days. That's hard work sometimes.
How do you feel about how much do you associate snowbirds with age or a certain generation?
Like 100%.
What if
But it
I what if I told you that I'm pretty sure that I want to be a snowbird and I'm not even 40 yet?
So my brother and his partner, she's a very good chef, and they both just took jobs on Jekyll Island, and they're there. They just got there this week, and I can see a scenario where I have a place down there. Florida is not the place for me. I'd love to go to Florida, but the snowbird thing is not especially with the ability to work from anywhere. Why would we not, if we have the capability, at least find an arrangement where you can spend some amount of time? Because I love the ocean too. Sunshine and water to me are therapeutic. So yeah, snowbird is in the offing.
The non-English side of my wife's family live in Florida, and so her siblings and parents all live there. And there have been a couple of like otherwise questionable Christmas time trips where it was a tough trip due to various family drama and the aforementioned infants and toddlers. Uh, but on those trips, I remember it's Christmas time. I walk outside. I've got bright sunshine. I'm in shorts. I'm like, all is right with the world. All I needed was to walk outside and feel this for 15 minutes. You can send me back to DC after that and get my 2 months of winter gloom in DC. But wow, what an energizer to
For sure.
you know break it up. I'm not sure how much we covered of distractions and the other thing I said. What was
So
the other
you
one I
you
said?
asked me. Let's take a couple minutes, and what are the potential distractions? I won't go through all the ones that you went through with me, but what are the potential distractions with you that concern you? Obviously, the health of your family. That's probably similar for me too. But
Oh,
what
I'm a doom thinker. My
you've
my
mentioned that
so my version of what's the worst thing that could happen that would throw it all out and make me end up in Florida with 4 jet skis and a neck tattoo. My version of that is take whatever I can imagine. It's 10 times number one, it's 10 times worse than that. Number two, it's not really actually as bad as that once you get through it. And number three, you'll never see it coming. Like it'll be the thing that you've
yeah,
never applied any thought to ever your whole life. You look at people who end up in these situations and that are, bad or not even bad, but just that they've done a 180 in a direction that was unexpected, and they lost their family or they lost a job, and it really upended them. Nobody nobody attributes that to the thing that they planned for and saw coming. They attribute it to the whatever the thing is that was in a blind spot. And blind spot is too specific. Like in the infinity of outcomes that could happen and occurrence that could take place in your life, I mean, no one is capable of thinking through that infinite negative space of all of the stuff that could happen. So it's universal that if you've had this major upsetting in your life, except for very, very few cases, it's always going to be from one of those places where you couldn't have had any attention. Because
Yeah.
if you'd had any semblance of it coming and had any idea of a plan for it, it wouldn't have had the impact on you that it did.
But do you feel like, I agree with that, but do you feel like you have the tools and the mechanisms in place that are like a force field to, because I think the key question is do you have the foundation to withstand? Because I think all of our lifetimes we're going to have a handful of potentially devastating incidences. Do you have the foundation to withstand that? And that's, I think, a discipline thing. Like, do you have the tools? Do you have to have planned for the specific thing and know exactly how you're going to behave, or do you have a foundation that lets you behave the same way regardless of the experience?
So
A devastating one.
given that this is really tough to get a actual measure of, is that like, so for people that had catastrophic event happen, or even if it's not catastrophic, just transformative, was there a foundation, and did the foundation basically make for a better outcome? There are too many layers of that question, each of the assumptions as difficult as the next, to try and quantify and attribute, you know, actual responsibility for any of those things. So I don't have this is just my opinion of things. And I guess maybe it edges into my belief in things. And I would say that my belief is, sure, I think I have a good foundation, but that's what everybody who ended up in that situation thought.
Yeah. I guess I'm intentional with that thinking though. Like, do I, um, am I cultivating the things, to your point, who knows how severe the debilitation is, how good the foundation is, same thing with how well is your house going to withstand a hurricane. You don't know until the hurricane comes.
Well,
And
you made a good point about what's in tension here, meaning what is in tension, uh, is is fluidity and flexibility and the ability to adapt and overcome.
yeah,
Is that based on like fluidness to your life, or is the ability to adapt and overcome maybe counterintuitively based on rigidity and structure in your life, and the discipline that embodies in Terry's current life as regimen and routine and systems, and where your time is spent, that that discipline may actually be more innate and more internal than it looks when it's just like, oh well, Terry eats at the same time every day, the same type of thing. And really the fact that you eat at the same time, the same foods, and you run at the same time, and you like each of these practices being as structured as they are, is actually not the root situation. The root situation is that somewhere inside, those things are like doing the same stuff and being intentional about it is what's important to you. And if everything was upended, you would just simply make a new version of the regimen that you have now.
that is the bow tie. That is 100% correct. Yes, agreed. Good show.
That's a great place to stop. We did
It's a
it.
good.
We did it.
That's exactly the point. If it's not diet or exercise, it would be something else. It's a really good point.
Well, Terry, thanks for peeling back the onion.
Circle back with me sometime later. Reach out and let's do another one.
We'll do another one. After I'm done with 3 months of transcendental meditation, I will also be asking, I will be revisiting the transcription of this episode to ensure that all promises were kept and that you're now not a Ford jet ski owner.
The neck tattoo too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So for some people, they're like, no, that'd be cool. I'd be okay with a tattoo. Whatever. I'd deal with it.
I don't have any. It's not. I'm not. I don't have a for or against position. It's just not something I get up thinking about.
I think very little about tattoos. There's your title. Thinking very little about
About
tattoos.
tattoos.
The episode. See you next time, Terry.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.